Well, hello. Hi,
Hello.
how's everyone doing out there?
How is everybody today?
Yeah, we're yet another episode of our edition of Pullquote.
Yep, we're very excited to bring you Hiroyuki Hamada. I think JP wants to do a little intro.
Yeah, so we first discovered Hiroki Hamada from a quote at the beginning of a Cory Morningstar series called The Manufacturing of Greta Thunberg. It was the first time I had ever heard his name, and I was very impressed with the quote. Hiroki Hamada is a sculptor and a painter. He has exhibited widely in gallery and non-commercial settings alike. Hiroki received an MFA from the University of Maryland and has taught sculpture at Penland School of Craft, as well as serving as a visiting artist at the Vermont Studio Center. He lives and works on the East End of Long Island with his family. We're very excited to feature a visual artist for the first time on Pullquote, and even more excited to bring in Hiroki Hamada. Welcome to Pullquote, Hiroki. Hey, there you
And
are.
there you
Hi,
are.
hi, hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really excited to meet
Hey,
you.
that one of our good friends who is also an artist. She was very excited about seeing this particular episode in particular, and she said that she reminded me that you do have that you had a Guggenheim fellowship, and that it's so rare to see somebody of that caliber speaking openly about what's going on. Sorry. I can back off that if you back away from that a little bit if you want.
um, yeah, I mean, I think the art world is really dominated by the capital. I think many of the institutions are supported by the big money, Democratic Party establishment in particular, and so the political atmosphere is very, very controlled, I think, and so it is something you would worry about, and you would feel isolated
Yeah.
if you have opinions that are different from what you hear on the media.
Yeah, that's something that I've heard you mention before, talking about like in your writings that you were beginning to write, and that the art world just didn't care. And when I told that to Julie, she was kind of surprised at that. And I said, no, the art world is like the corporate world. It's very much, it's more about conformity than you might think.
Well, it's an interesting situation because I think the selling point selling point of art is, of course, its capability to reach um, to people in terms of humanity and all the good things that transcends the framework of the society, which is dominated by capitalism. So it is people do talk about dissent. People talk about political opinions that are for the people, but everything happens within the framework of the uh, corporate politics, acceptable range of dissent, and of course that make things kind of worse because um, that kind of force can be harding people, the general population, into the corporate sphere.
Read it. I think so many people um, think of you as an artist, as a sculptor, a painter, that they forget that you also do some writing. Before we move on to the art part of this conversation, I'd like to read from your February 2021 article, just very quickly, and we can have a short discussion about that, and then we can move on. So it's entitled "The Mechanism of Invisible Hand, Invisible Cage, and Invisible Empire Over Humanity and Nature." So, you know, I would ask the listeners to remember that this was written in February of 2021. The invisible cage of authoritarianism comes in the shape of a bottomless pyramid. Fear and hopelessness fill the dimly lit bottom layers. Layers and layers separate us, alienate us, and dehumanize us. The pain of others becomes your gain. The power of oppressors becomes your safety. The safety of living in the dangerous imaginations of the kings and queens. So I'll stop there and we can talk more about what you mean by kings and queens and their dangerous imaginations. I found that this particular piece was very compelling and almost read like a little story.
Well, the imagination, obviously, the reason why I started um, writing about these things is that I um, I have an existential fear as an artist, because if your society is controlled, if your society is put in this framework of um, uh, profiting, not profiting, um, you will be limited in terms of how you imagine your surrounding, and everything else, who you are, how your relationships are. And this is a fatal momentum against art.
Hmm.
And so while we are being deprived of ability to imagine and be creative, we have this situation in which all those extremely rich, powerful people who are free to imagine, who are free to come up with all kinds of crazy ideas, with the expense of the people who are being devoured as profit. So that's what I meant by imagination of the um kings and queen. Kings and queen are, of course, the oligarchs who
Right.
Right.
are controlling whatever we are being subjected to. And but I wanted to imply that this is a lot like feudalism. They are not elected leaders, representatives. Many of them are just being good at tricking you, make
Yeah.
money.
Right.
So
Good at investing, good at money,
right.
whatever. Yeah.
It's a really, really strange situation. That gives people the power to preside over you. And this is a lot like violent feudalism.
To hear the full episode of this edition of Pullquote, join Rockfin or become a patron.